Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to the next episode of The Halfway Point. Today, we're going to be going over some Moza software. I had somebody ask me about the steering wheel and settings and getting it set up for iRacing. Since I do formula racing, I figured I'd get that video out. Excuse the voice, I've got a little bit of a sore throat, but feel pretty good. So I figured I'd get this video out for everybody. So what we're seeing now on the screen is that wonderful Moza Pit House software. After coming from Fanatic, which had a pretty simple to use software, this was a little different, far more visual settings, as you can see if I move the wheel. We've got that wonderful Moza wheel with all the different buttons and options and color patterns and all the different things you can set up. So first and foremost, I'm just going to take a quick look at the software. As we can see, this is the default home setting. I do not have their pedals. Currently, I am running a set of CSL Elite load cells, but I do have a set of Husingveld Sprint pedals on the way, without the clutch because I don't really use it. Here you can see the R9 base. Here you can see the GS steering wheel. Right on this home screen, the couple things you're going to see right off the bat is you're going to see the maximum steering angle. Mine is set to 360 because I was racing formula racing, as well as my R9 base was set to 80% feedback intensity. Depending on what I'm racing, I'll change it. But since I've been racing formula racing, I'll be honest, at 80% it's been kind of sweet. So as you can see here on this left side, you've got different buttons you can click on. One is for the wheelbase. One is for your wheel. One is for your pedals. One is for their digital screen, which I do not have. I'm running actually an old iPhone 6 Plus or 6S Plus that I got for next to nothing with the SimHub software. You have all of your, in the cloud, you have all of the updates to make sure everything is already updated to the latest firmware, which I have to be honest is pretty sweet. I just update it all in one fell swoop with one click. It does the updates and then I'm off to racing. And here's my profile and system settings and things of that nature. So going back to that home screen again, getting that wonderful visual of your steering wheel and whatever base you have. Base settings, some of the basic settings, really cool. The presets, I've actually used three of these, GT, Performance, and Formula. I love F1 racing right now, and I usually race GT racing with the Ferrari 488. But right now I'm racing formula racing and iRacing in their GP series. I have a maximum steering angle, and of course, if you click on the maximum steering angle here, and you click on the formula racing or performance or GT, it'll change all of these settings based on their pre-rendered formats and settings. So if you click, and obviously once you click, you'll see all the options change. You can go ahead and make any updates to the settings that you want. And the great thing is for me, I've made my own updates. So if I go to import settings, you'll see I have GT and W12 because I race the Formula 1 W12. If I made some changes here, whether it be to steering angle, road intensity, game force feedback, maximum speed of steering wheel, and again, if you hover over these, over the eye bubble, it'll tell you everything you need to know. So I'm not going to go as in depth in those because a lot of these settings, advanced settings, maximum output torque, I have to 100%. All of these settings are things that you're going to want to mess around with and play with. Again, depending on how you like your settings to go, will depend on how you set this up so that when you race. I'll be honest, and again, I hate doing comparisons because I believe comparison can rob you of your joy. But being that I've come from Fanatic and I've used this, I've been honest, I've messed with a lot of it, and I really like the options it has, especially in the force feedback effect equalizer. In my personal settings, I have changed these, and I've increased some of the road intensity when I'm riding on sand or on the curb or on grass and things of that nature, so I can get more feedback and get that granular detail that I need to get when I'm racing, because as we all know, I'm not feeling any G-forces. So again, make all the changes you want, hit save setting, give it a name, whatever you want, hit save, it saves it into a folder. Now you'll see my icon shows a uTorrent open. I don't know why it's set that way, probably because I clicked on open with by accident. But again, when you save the files, it'll say as a JSON file, and again, that'll have all of your settings. So what I recommend, whatever sim you're racing, once you start racing, make your changes, make your updates, do laps after laps after laps, till you can fine tune your setting. Save it per car. Being that you can have as many save profiles as you want, instead of just saving it for that particular type of racing, I've saved them per car. So the W12, the GT1 I named GTE, but again, it's for my Ferrari 488. So that's pretty much what that is for. But again, tons of settings here that you can change for your own force feedback depending on what wheelbase you have. Next, I'm going to click on the steering wheel. And again, I love this steering wheel. It is absolutely awesome. And as you can see, if I click on anything here, it's going to display it on the screen, which I absolutely love. If I move some stuff around, it's going to show on the screen that I am moving these buttons. And obviously, the great thing is, for the brake balance and ERS, the great thing is these are also buttons that you can push. So you have more than enough options on this wheel to run just about anything you'd like to. With that being said, now that I do, again, the formula racing, I do use the analog buttons here, or paddles, as my clutch and bite point. So for me, in my formula races, I have it set to 65%. So that for me, I grab both. And again, I'll show you when I get to Iracing. But for me, these are the settings that I use. You can, of course, change the RPM on a gauge here. You can set it to mode 1 and mode 2. And again, you'll just have to play around with those settings. In one of them, it'll show as if the RPM will change and just go from green to whatever color you want, all in one. In mode 2, it'll flash a solid color. So as you get up to certain RPMs, it'll be all green, all yellow, all blue. Of course, you get to your shift point, which, all red or so forth. Brightness, of course, I set to 100%, and I leave this on normal. But again, more settings just for you to adjust. That is completely up to you, completely optional, and depending on how you want to set yours up, that is perfectly fine. So again, make your changes, save your setting, name it, you're good to go. So like I said, I love the fact that you can save a bunch of different profiles, a bunch of different settings, depending on what car you drive. If you're driving a GT car, you may not ever use a clutch. You may just use the shifters and not use the paddles. So you'd be good either way. So next, we're going to get into showing you how I map my buttons specifically in Iracing. So I'll get that started and we'll take a look. All right. So as I stated, now we're going to take a look at Iracing, look at my button setup. For those who do formula racing, GT racing, it's kind of universal. However, obviously, we know with formula racing, you're going to have different settings for things to manage your DRS, your energy recovery system. And the great thing about Moza is they have, again, those thumb encoders here for you to make those changes. With that being said, one of my favorite features that I absolutely love is the backlit button. So let's take a look at that in the dark. Excuse the glare from the monitors behind, but I just think that is absolutely awesome that I can see each and every button. Of course, I have also taken the liberty of changing the color scheme of those buttons. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Turn that light back on. So as we can see, I've got my own different button layout here as far as color scheme. Some of them are already labeled. As you can see, it has PL, which would be for pit limiter. Has box, obviously, for boxing. Has different labels: FL, P, WIP, RN, reverse neutral, TR for traction. But again, depending on what you're racing, you're going to use these for anything that you want. And I personally have changed them for things that I want. So with that being said, again, that cool feature, if you push both of these, because these are a button, if you hold them down, you'll see that it flashes. Now I can change the color of this button to any color that I want. And just keep pushing it. I'm going to change it back to white. Again, keep pushing the button. Change it to whatever color that you want. Make sure once you're done, you push it again till you see that flashing light. This way, when you push it, it won't change color. The first time I did this, I have to be honest, I changed the color, forgot to do that. And as I'm racing, I go back at the end of the race and look, all the colors are completely different. I actually will change the colors every few days just because I think it's cool. And it's just an option that I have, and I get to customize my wheel the way I like it. So back to Iracing. As we look up in the window, we see, of course, we got all the different options here for force feedback. And you can see I have my wheel force at 9 Newton meters. I have my strength at 8. That's just my personal setting. Have my wheel range mapped. And again, that's going to correspond to that Moza software. I mapped my wheel to 380. I mapped it to 360. I mapped it. Of course, this slider sometimes can get a little hard to try and get right on 360, so 358 is fine. You can also have it auto set and do the steering calibration and all of those different things. So I'm not going to walk you through that. I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to do the steering and pedals and gearbox calibrations. I will say for the steering, make sure that when you set up in the Moza software, make sure you set up your clutch and bite point. By doing so, when you get into the steering section, it's going to ask you about setting up your clutch. Well, if you're doing formula racing, you want to, of course, map those to your 2 paddles back here. So that, again, as you're racing, you put that in first gear, step on the gas, so about 40-45% throttle, hold them both in. Then, when it's time to take off, let go of that bite point, slowly release the clutch, and take off. And I'll be honest, since I've been doing that, I've gotten 10 times faster. So I will say that is something that I'm now getting used to, and that's how I start all of the formula races. So again, for me, I map my enter, exit, and tow to the box button. Just makes sense. In Iracing, if I need a tow because I have wrecked or something has happened or somebody hit me, I'm going to map that right here to my box button. For the look right, left, up, and down, I simply map that to the analog here. So left, right, up, and down. These settings here, again, nothing much. Set your field of view and all these things that you need to set. So then in the options, again, I have a couple button boxes that I actually use for these things here. So not that big of a deal. You set these up how you want to set them up. Again, I've used them on button boxes. Same thing for some of the options here. Same thing for some of the replay options. Sound options as well. Now again, I personally have mapped my push to talk button. I've actually mapped that, if I'm not mistaken, right here. Because again, for me, if I want to chat or say something real quick, I tap that button. But I'll be honest, in race, most times I turn it off. I might say something if somebody happens to hit me, like, hey man, but other than that, I really don't talk much. That's just my personal preference. But again, everybody's different. Now, as far as control, now again, I have mapped my second clutch here to my paddles. Now you can do it in the steering, but at the time I wanted to jump in the race, I just simply did it second clutch, click on it. Now I have mine set to 65%, hold them together again, and obviously hit done. Hit done, it's completed. Now you see it's mapped there. For me, I have a button box again and buttons to do my ignition. For my pit limiter, PL, made sense. I don't use the headlight flash, obviously, in Formula Racing, and again, it's mapped to a button box. For push to pass and overtake, again, not really used much in the Formula 1, but I did map it here. DRS for me, now again, depending on how comfortable you feel, I race with gloves because of the Alcantara grips. I don't want to ruin them. So for me, I have mapped my DRS here. It seemed easier here than here. Reaching across, and again, all these are within thumb length, so I didn't have a problem. So I mapped my DRS here. Now I've actually also mapped my tear-off visor right here. I know it's a P, and I believe it's a park, but again, like any button, you can map it to whatever you want. And as you know, if you're racing in Formula, you'll be tearing off that visor a few times during the race. Depending on what goes on in front of you, you might tear it off 10 to 20 times in one race. These are pretty simple. Again, you have your brake bias setting. You have a thumb encoder for brake bias, which makes life 10 times easier. For my fine brake bias, which is this one is for the brake bias that I use on my thumb encoder. This one I have mapped to a button box, and again, that's when you're racing Formula to get it down as low as you can for your brake bias settings. For my button box, I'll be honest, I've mapped it here, up and down. So for next and previous, and then for many of these other ones, I have mapped to a button box. So not really relevant. For fuel mixture, again, not really doing it, but there's a map button. Set it right to the map button. Now that'll stay that way if I race a GT race. I can map it there. My traction control, my ABS, my differential, and turbo. Obviously, again, you can set those to whatever you like. But again, ABS, click on it. Device 39, have it set, use up and down buttons or encoder. To increase, you rotate it right. Or if I hit reset, I'll just do it again. Rotate it right. For decrease, rotate it left. Hit done. And you're good to go. And what happens is each time you move it, it's hitting button 39 to increase it. Again, same thing with differential. MGUK deploy, that's going to be set to your ERS. Because as you know, if you're racing in an open race, you have the ability to change your ERS, attack mode, build mode, turn it off, quali, and balance. So again, you're going to set it, increases up, decreases down, and it's got some really nice detents there. So you're going to really know if you went 1 up, 2 up. So again, as long as you have a screen in front of you to see what you're setting it to, you should be fine. And that is pretty much in a nutshell my settings. If you have any questions, if you need some more advice, if you just say, hey, Ray, that's cool, or hey, I have a different way of mapping mine, awesome. Let me know in the comments. And again, if you appreciate this video, go ahead and click on that subscribe link. If you think it's something that was horrible, click on that subscribe link. But I hope that this was useful. And again, welcome to Moza. Again, this is all stuff that was purchased by me. I want to make that clear. Nobody sponsored me or gave me anything, but I really like the gear, and again, got my own little video YouTube. So hit that subscribe link. Go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and leave a comment down there. Good, bad. Hey, all feedback. I am going to answer your question as best as I can. All right. So you have a good one. And if you have more questions about Moza, let me know. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.